All right, everybody. I want to welcome Ryan Wallace to the podcast, also known as Coach Ryan, self-proclaimed legend and star in the upcoming documentary that's yet to be released based on Lake Tahoe, Momentum.
Yeah.
Ryan, I appreciate you coming on.
course.
I know you got a story to tell here, and why don't we just start from the beginning? You know, how we got in contact, you kind of saw some of the other content, but tell us what you do in town, and then let's back it up and hear a little bit about how you got there.
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, I saw the first podcast. Those are my friends that you interviewed, and I loved it. And I was like, I got something to add to what they said, so I reached out right away. I had to get on there, and everything's going good for me right now. And so I wanted to tell everyone why. So,
Yeah, please.
So basically, I'll just tell my story, and then we'll get into the action after. But just listening to what I got to say will give the credibility to what's happening, how it's shaped my life now, and what's going good. So the beginning is just like anybody. I was trying to get candy. That was my only goal: get candy, and get candy, and get candy, and that's pretty much what I did until around 10.
And by get candy,
I just mean candy. You know, candy like sweet tarts.
Okay.
Like Halloween candy. That was my primary objective. Just have a good time.
Candy.
Have a good time. Get some candy.
Yep.
Build forts. I lived out in Christmas Valley, so I was just building forts, eating candy, having the best time ever.
Tahoe local dream.
Tahoe local dream is like the best. We lived right on the river. It was the best beginning you could have. And then I found out about sports more, and I got locked into sports. And then I had a little bit of turmoil. My parents split up, and I ended up moving to Santa Cruz with my mom and my aunt. And that's when I really dialed in on wrestling, especially because I went down to a school called Aptos High School, and the coach there was just an awesome guy. His name is Reggie, and he, like, a lot of what I do is modeled after what he showed me and what he did for me. And so I became locked into the goal of state champion. I wanted to be the state champion above anything. Sophomore year, blew out my knee, had to get surgery on my meniscus, season ended short. Then I got back into football, was rocking again. Junior year, same thing, busted that knee up.
Same knee.
Maybe that, and it was my right leg. And I had been having problems with that right leg already, like all the way back since 5th grade. And then senior year, I moved back to Tahoe, and I wanted to get Nevada State Championship, and I wanted to graduate with the kids that I went to school with. I had it all the way since preschool, the same group of kids I was about to graduate with. So that was important to me to come back here, get a state title for my school, and graduate with them. Well, about halfway through that season, I started having a lot of problems with that leg, and what they did is they x-rayed a larger section of it than they had before, and they found tumors in there. These rare type of tumors. At that time we hadn't diagnosed them, but they were making my leg crack. And so I had to finish my second half of my senior year with this basically graham cracker leg that was cracked, and I had to modify my stance to wrestle.
You were still wrestling after you got this news.
Yeah, 100%. And it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. And it's at that time. So one of the themes I want everybody to get from me is the things that we think are the bad stuff almost always turns out to be the good stuff. So at that time, I thought having to finish my senior year with a broken leg full of cancer was the bad stuff, was the worst possible scenario. But now that I'm a coach and a kid has adversity, I can be like, hey, I know what you're going through, man. I know what you're going through, and then some. And then my joke is always, if they have a little problem, like, yeah, I had a broken leg full of cancer, so I get you. You know what I mean? And that's like the ultimate. No one can complain. And I always say, like, I wish I could complain about my right knee right now, or like, I wish I hurt my right ankle. But so it's a joke that I use as a tool, but it's also a tool that I use to show them, like, dedication towards this, towards whatever you have, means dedication towards it no matter what's going on. Mm-hmm. And that's the only way you're going to get to the top, because there's going to be hurdles after hurdle after hurdle, and disappointments and challenges, no matter what you're trying to do. You know, you want to be the best real estate agent, you're going to have challenges. You're going to have people that back out at the last minute, right? You want to be a doctor, you're going to have a patient with something you can't solve. There's all those things. Any industry, any field, you have that. So I'm so grateful that I had that so early. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I build off of all the time, and that I always remember that feeling. And so I came up short of my state champion goals, but now that I look back, being able to compete and push myself through that type of pain and that type of like doubt is more valuable than any state championship would have been.
I can't fathom the mentality it must have taken as a senior in high school.
Yeah.
Coming up against what could be at the best a treatment and at the worst your life.
Right. Well, so luckily when you're a senior, you're kind of dumb. So you don't necessarily think that deep, especially at that time. You're sort of focused on the smaller view of it. But also wrestling is a sport that if you dig into it, you realize that there are hundreds of people who've done that sport who have that same mentality and would do the same thing in the same situation. That's why I coach it, because it literally saved my life by allowing me to get diagnosed at that point, and figuratively saved my life because it gave me the mindset and the ability to push through adversity. So one of the other themes of my life that I always talk about that I'll stretch out into is like when things are going good for you, you got to challenge yourself and put yourself in terrible situations so that when the bad things come, you've already simulated it and you're already ready. And that's what wrestling had done for me up to that point. And that's what it does for all the guys that are in there and the girls that are in there. You're doing the most difficult thing that somebody that age is allowed to do in school. You know, that you're starving yourself, you're pushing yourself through injuries. It's scary. You go out almost naked. You know, you're just in a singlet in the middle against someone, and there's risk of embarrassment, risk of injury, risk of, you know, not of coming short of your goals. And that prepares you in a way that almost nothing else can. Nothing else that I've found can for something like getting tumors in your leg. Obviously, that's not the bar of wrestling with a broken leg full of cancer, but it prepares you for that type of commitment and dedication to whatever goal you choose.
So what happened? You find out you have cancer in your leg, broken leg, you fall short of the state champion goal,
right? But
you pushed through and performed. What happened there? After?
So then the next couple years was surgery after surgery, experimental treatments. They took bone from my hip, tried to graft it into the shin. It kept breaking or fracturing. And my guts got all messed up from repeatedly being under anesthesia and having medication and all of this. So about 2 years after I graduated, I spent time just constantly in surgery or recovering from surgery or starting to build something and then getting knocked back down. And I met a kid. So once they discovered what type of tumor I had, it was called, this is on the test, you guys, osteofibrous dysplasia differentiated adamantinoma. Super rare, so rare that it doesn't have a common name or like a shortened one. Nothing like that. So there was a specialist in San Francisco who had seen the majority of cases of this particular type of tumor, and they still don't even really know what causes it. It's found either in your jaw or your shin. And I met another kid who had advanced to a further stage, and he was around my same age. And they found it later because of less fortunate circumstances than I had. And within a few months of me meeting him, he was gone. He didn't make it.
So it had metastasized up his leg, or
100%. It had gone to all of his bones, and it was in his lungs, and it took him out. And so I started asking the question, how do you guys know that it's not going to be me? And you know, this is the late 90s, early 2000s. They don't know. They can't give me those answers. There's not a lot of proven treatments. There's not a lot of good ways to detect what's going on. You know, it was primarily x-rays and guesswork. And I started realizing, like, I gotta make a decision here. They wanted to do this thing called a Lizarov, where they cut my bone in half and took that bone out and then like grew a new bone inside a cage. And it was gonna be like 2 years of constantly being in this like contraption to grow the bone. And I was like, no, I don't want that. I'm tired of this. So I made the choice in June when I was 20 to have it amputated in September. So I had a summer lead time, and my leg was broken, and I had a tumor that was the size of a lemon.
Now, when you say your leg is broken, what part of your leg?
My shin bone, right? The shin bone was cracked. It had cracked actually over a ski boot. I was trying to ski, and then it cracked over a ski boot. And that was like the 4th time that I had a break of some sort because that leg was just mush at this point. The blood that was flowing to heal the break was getting fed on by the tumors. So it grew a big old knot, and it was just almost bless you.
Say
Don't get safe. So it was growing this big old tumor, and the tumor, it was actually funny because right before I got it cut off, my siblings colored it and made it look like a lemon because I always said I was a lemon, and it looked like a lemon literally. So I had a summer lead time where I had decided I was going to get it amputated. We had the date and everything, and so like when I was 18, when you're 18, you feel invincible and you're too dumb to know that you're not. You know what I mean? But after this point, I had started to realize my mortality. A, because I saw that kid pass away who was like, could have been me easily, very easily. And then second, because I was just in constant agony and constantly thinking about, you know, is this going to be my whole life? Am I always going to be dealing with this? Am I always going to be wondering if it's metastasized, or am I always going to be wondering like if I have to have another surgery or whatever? So going into the surgery, it was in San Francisco. We drove down there, and I had just kind of like a thought like, all right, this is cool. This is going to be a new step. But I just kept having the dark thought, like, with one leg, what is my life going to be like? You know, I had tied up so much of my self-worth into physical abilities and sports and that type of thing. I wanted to wrestle in college and all of that stuff I had dreamed about. Now I was thinking like, okay, am I just going to be riding in the wagon, always a burden on my loved ones and just kind of a lesser version of life? And that was the thought that kept going in my mind going into surgery. And then when I came out, they had put a epidural in my back. So I woke up and I was completely pain-free. Just completely no pain for the first time in like however long I could remember. All the way back since 5th grade, I'd been complaining about pain in that shin. First they said growing pains, then in middle school and track they said shin splints. Then the shin splints was kind of the working theory, and then I had problems with that knee because I was always favoring that leg. So all the way back since before I could even remember, that leg had been hurting. And then the last couple of years, surgeries and everything, it was just always excruciatingly painful. But you kind of get used to it, you know what I mean? You don't necessarily know how bad it is until you have like, boom, that was a black and white moment, like it's completely pain-free. And the other part, so first of all, I'm realizing like, dude, this doesn't hurt at all. This is awesome. And then I was also thinking, this is the first time I can think about what is it actually going to really look like? You know what I mean? Instead of thinking, I'm always going to be dealing with these tumors, now I'm thinking, well, now I have a life again. I got a second chance. And I had both, you know, conflicting views. Like, am I going to have a lesser version of life, having one leg? Or am I going to just go test it? And I decided I was going to just send it, see how far I could go on one leg. I immediately started walking. I had this like cast with a peg leg. And I just started doing laps around the hospital just nonstop.
Right after the surgery?
Right away, as soon as I could. Before even the end of the first day. Because I had read a book that talked about phantom pains. And they said the sooner you can deaden the nerves, the better. And also, like, I wasn't about to just sit around anymore, you know what I mean? I wasn't about to wait for things to happen anymore. I just wanted to get it. And so then I still kind of had doubts, like, you know, it's hard to, I'm learning to walk again. I'm all off balance, this kind of thing. But I didn't want to use crutches, so I was just going for it. I was like, I'd rather be...
Did the staff appreciate that mindset?
Sort of. Okay, so one of the things, one of the best things, this is just a side note, something that I always add just because this was the cool part of it. I was in the pediatric ward, and the nurses were just so hot, dude. Like, because I was 20, and the nurses were like maybe, you know, 5 or 6 years older than that, and they were just, they had been used to dealing with little kids, not like, I was still pretty fit. I'd done a lot of working out, getting ready for it and stuff, and that was the best part. So I was like trying to kind of like flirt as I was cruising around, you know, and
chasing a different kind of candy.
Exactly. That's the new candy. And then I was also around all these little kids that were dealing with chemo and all of this stuff, which is heartbreaking, but also they were smiling and playing. Like, we had a magic wand contest, making magic wands, and I'm in there with all these little kids with their, you know, their bald heads and all of that, and they're laughing and playing with their wands and all that. And I'm like, you know, these guys have the perspective. Whatever's happening, you still got to go for it, you know. And so that helped a lot, the two things: hot nurses to impress and to be like, no, I don't need crutches, you know. And then the little kids as sort of an inspiration. And I wish that I had paid more attention to that part of it, because then it took me a couple months to figure out that I was capable of that type of thing for other people, you know what I mean? So I got invited to be the assistant wrestling coach right after. A couple months after I got out of the hospital, my brother was on the team, and they got a new coach. This guy, Ken Robbins. He's still like my best friend. He asked me to be the assistant coach with him. And I'm like, do you know that I lost my leg? He's like, yeah, you were the hardest guy for me to wrestle. When he first came to town, people said there's a new wrestler who's tough, and me and him like went at it. I was like, no, this is my town. And so we got along great because we had that same mentality. And so he invited me to be the coach with him. And in a second, I realized those kids were so motivated by me attempting to push them towards their goals despite recovering from an amputation and having my own recovery to do. And I just fully dove into motivating them and telling them, like, you're preparing for stuff you don't know about, giving that message, and then working for my own goals. And it's something like, the reason why I'm so happy now and why things are so good now is because I learned right then. The more I did motivated them, okay, which motivated me to do more, which motivated them to do more, and it builds. And it's been that way for all the relationships I have. And especially, like, you know, a normal guy that goes to the gym and everyone's like, yeah, cool, like, good for you. I go to the gym and they're like, oh, like, it's so good. Like, and it's a tad bit patronizing, but it's also like, it's very cool that I have this visual encumbrance. You know, it's very visual. You can tell, like, that's one leg. And if I still go and it pumps people up and they say, well, I don't have an excuse then, that motivates them and it motivates me to be better, because, like, who wouldn't want a whole town full of accountability buddies? You know what I mean? Everybody wants to see me succeed, and uses my success as a motivational factor in their life. And it's awesome. I could never have got that without dealing with the amputation and dealing with the tumors and all of that. So I was in a situation where I wanted to get the most out of it, and I realized that I have a cool opportunity and that my life is not going to be less than, it's going to be much more than what I would have gotten. Mm-hmm. And I had that mindset, and it was great, but I was going like, I was partying like crazy, I was coaching like crazy, I was working hard, I was a captain on a fishing boat, and I was getting the most out of every day, and like, it was very cool. I had a great time, and I don't regret that part. But what I wasn't realizing is that if I had slowed down for a second, I could have built at that time, like, the ability to impact more people and to provide for my future self in a better way. So I got to around 30.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I'll explain that right now. So basically, I got to where I was 30, and approximately, I was doing yard work, and I had 2 bags of pine needles on my shoulder, and I took a step, and my prosthetic leg pitched me forward. And then when I was trying to regain my balance, I stepped on a rock and it twisted my foot weird, and I jacked up my whole foot so bad. And my prosthetic was broken and my human foot was useless. And my insurance wouldn't cover a new prosthetic because of a loophole. And the foot doctor up here wouldn't take the insurance I had, except for very few certain things. I kept having to get it drained. And, well, obviously I messed it up because I thought I was just being a wuss, so I walked around for another couple days, made it much worse. But basically what I realized is I was doing good for current Ryan, and I was having a great time, and I was inspiring people, and I was doing good things, but I wasn't preparing future Ryan for what he needed to do to, like, be an adult, you know what I mean? I didn't grow up because I was having too much fun just
sounds like
getting after it.
You were in the present so presently.
Right.
That the concept of how you wanted to build your future, it couldn't just keep going the way that it was going.
Right.
It needed to have a shift.
What was needed
that
to have a shift? So what the shift was, and this is like one of the most profound experiences. I couldn't coach. I couldn't work. I couldn't walk. I was crawling around my house like a dog. Like I had to shower on my knees, and I couldn't put weight on my foot. I didn't have a prosthetic. I couldn't crutch. And I was just I went from being fully in the middle of everything to isolated completely. And I was just thinking, okay, well, that dark second path that I thought of a lesser life and a burdened life is coming true. I delayed it, but that was the right thought I had. And I started getting some dark thoughts about just, okay, well, I blew it. You know what I mean?
Was this the inevitable coming for me?
Right. Like, was I lying to myself the whole time kind of thing? And I had doubts, and I had it's valuable to me that I got so dark for a minute, because I can really relate to people who get depressed or let the circumstances overwhelm them, because I let it for a minute. But luckily, fortunately, the wrestling team and the community, they did a fundraiser to get me a new leg. And part of the fundraiser was a video they made. And all of these kids, the kids that I thought did not get it, like bad attendance, didn't win wrestling matches, had outside of the mat behavior issues, had, other issues, injuries, whatever, that kept them out of wrestling or limited their success. It was all of those kids that came to bat for me the most, raised the most money, said the nicest things, wanted me to get a leg the most, said they got the most out of what I was showing them. And so, first of all, that completely reworked my brain on like, I need to realize what I'm actually teaching people and what like my life can mean to someone. It's not just about winning matches. It's not just about being good at things. It's about the determination and caring and that type of thing. And then also just side thing, if you ever get a chance for everyone you love to say nice things about you and give you money, take it. It's 10 out of 10. I recommend it highly. Like, it's the best. It's the best. So, but basically, I got my obituary read to me before I was passed, you know what I mean? And there were things that they were saying that I didn't recognize I was doing. And then there was just elements where I was like, the whole time I could have been putting my energy towards that, and I wasn't, And then I got this new leg, and it was awesome. In like 3 days, they raised $25,000 for me to get this state-of-the-art leg. And it was completely rad. And I ended up having everybody who donated or helped get their name. I put their name on the socket of the leg. And I was like, I had this crazy cross-section of, I was so motivated because I didn't think necessarily that I deserved the kindness that I got, but I wanted to prove to them that I was worth it. And I still couldn't walk because my foot was broken still, but I had this awesome leg that I was staring at every morning. And so I started thinking, what was it? What did they want? Why did they want me to have this so bad? And, I realized they wanted me to be successful. They wanted me to be happy, and they wanted me to have a tool to be more of what they missed, and so
they knew you to be.
Right, exactly. And so I decided I was going to be to prove that I was worth it, that their effort and the time it took. The prosthetic company gave me a good deal on the leg. They made me the leg. They let me have visitation or visits there without cost. They made me this awesome thing, and then all the people donated, and all these people were like supporting me at that time. I said, I want to be as successful as possible with this tool they gave me. They gave me this so that I could take off. So I finished my degree online while I was recovering, and I just started studying successful people. And then I also started just telling people, like reminding people, I want you to know people will miss you. If something happens to you, they will miss you. And there's a lot of parts of every single person that people will miss. And I had never thought about that, you know what I mean? I'd never thought about that because I didn't have to really, because I was always there. But when you're getting down, you got to realize that, and you got to remember that. And so that is something that has kept me from getting low ever again, because there's been other hard times, but realizing that they will miss you, and then that people want you to be successful, especially if you prove that if they support you, that you'll make the most of it, you know what I mean? So I got this I got this desire to just figure out what a successful person is. I hadn't even thought of it really. And I was doing some of the things by accident, but not directly. And so one of the things I realized is they just work harder than anyone. And that was one thing I was already kind of doing, but I was sporadic. I was everywhere, you know. And so I just decided I was going to start getting some goals and working harder. And you realize when you read about the successful people, they're putting 14-hour days in. They are reading every material in their field. They are doing the extra research. They are making the extra call. They're doing all of the things that normal people don't want to do. And everybody doesn't want to do the same things. Successful people don't want to do that either, but they do it because they know what it takes. And I tell kids all the time, like, I know you don't want to do your homework. I know you don't want to get your extra workout in at 5 in the morning before school. I don't either, but I'm doing it because I know that that's what leads to success. Because everybody has the same amount of time. And it's the people that are using the spare time. You know, we all go to work 8 hours a day or school 8 hours a day. We all need an hour or so of, you know, shower, teeth brushing, that kind of stuff. We all have an hour where we just got to zone out. And we all have that other little chunk of time, like 2 hours, that we could either waste it or we can use that to push us. And the successful people, they just utilize that extra time, the time that everyone has, that most people waste. Successful people do the things they don't want to do at that time. So I just started doing that. I just started disciplining myself enough to, you know, skip the extra sort of like fun, for lack of a better word, in order to push myself towards goals that were going to make people's lives better and my life better. And then it just leads to habits, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it reminds me of something that Alex Hormozy has talked about recently about instead of making to-do lists and focusing on what you need to be doing more of, what are you willing to sacrifice?
Right.
What are you willing to let go of?
What are you willing to let go of?
Because there's so many things in life that if you were just able to let go of that 2 hours of TV when you get home, what could you replace that with?
Right.
And it sounds like you stepped away from things that had been fuel for you to stay in that present moment, to appreciate life, to just take advantage of this second chance that you felt like you've gotten. Now life is asking you to reevaluate that, right, and go into the storm.
Exactly. And make the second chance not just for myself a second chance. I'm back in the second chance for a reason, and it's much bigger than me, and it's to build a community around myself that is supportive. You know, I wanted more of that, people that will help me when I'm down, not for a selfish reason, but because human beings are tribal by nature. And one of the things I studied was just sort of, I had some anthropology classes, and I just realized that civilizations and cultures and tribes where everyone in the tribe had the other tribe members' well-being at the forefront of their mind, those were the strong tribes. And you know, if every member of your tribe wants to lift each person up, then it grows into a civilization that flourishes, or it grows into an organization that flourishes, or a family that flourishes. Just having other people's well-being in your mind constantly, it makes your support system around you stronger, makes you more capable, and it propels you to have a group of people that can accomplish something much, much bigger than you can on your own. And so I just started building that. I used the wrestling team as like, this is my foundation that I'm going to spread from. And then I decided I'm going to stop just telling them what to do, and I'm going to start practicing what I preach. And I started competing in jiu-jitsu again. I just found as many adventures as I could do, and I set adventure goals that had the purpose of showing people the value of living that way. Like, I wanted to compete in the Endeavor Games, and that's a game where there's people with all these missing limbs. So I set that goal to do that. I wanted to climb Mount Tallac, set the goal to climb Mount Tallac, got up there with one leg. You know, I had been in the shadow of that mountain for my whole life and never gone up there. And that type of thing where it's like, hey, I'm doing this to show you that despite anything that's in your life, you can accomplish these things, right? And that doing scary things is preparing you for when real life comes at you. And that there's harsh realities of life. There's a countless number of disappointments and things that are going to impact you that you have to be prepared for, and you got to spend your good time. The good times, you got to take time to get ready for the impending bad times, and that's the best way to bounce back from it without having to hit all the way at the bottom. You'll be ready, you know. So like I competed in WFC, and that's World Fighting Championships in a jiu-jitsu match. This dude was 285 pounds and had a black belt, and I got one leg and I'm hopping out there. And A, that inspires a lot of people. B, the amount of things I had to do to get ready for that and to be mentally prepared for that was massive. And then on top of that, like a couple years later, my brother passed away, and like, it's weird that those things translate, but that same type of doubt and fear and confusion and all of those things that you have when you're getting into a cage against a massive man is the same things you feel, just in a little different way when your family gets struck with a tragedy or something terrible befalls you, you know? And so I just have dedicated to getting people around me and teaching them that by example, and constantly telling them that what we're really doing is preparing for tragedy. We're preparing to be in a group that can lift us up in a tragedy, and we're preparing ourselves to be someone who lifts other people up in tragedy, and to be strong for the people around us in those type of situations. And it feels like now I'm to the point where that's what my whole life purpose has been, is to demonstrate that and demonstrate how to come out of the valleys, and then how to be ready for it and how to react to it. So what that leads to, Chris Kokoris, there's the documentary that you mentioned at the very beginning. Momentum. Okay, and that's partly why all of this has kind of come together to an awesome thing and validated what I've been saying and what I've been doing and what I've been trying for. Chris he came to a wrestling tournament on the beach that I put on. I put on a beach tournament every summer. And he was a fighter, and he came there, and my JV kids kicked his ass. They took him out, and they did that from other fighters too, but he came to me and said, hey, you got to teach me. I need help. I want to be the best fighter in the world. And that's literally what he told me. I want to be the best fighter in the world. Can you help me? And so I started coaching him. Got in the mindset of teaching him how to defend takedowns, how to mentally prepare. And all the time I felt on my heart to give him the message of like, a fight is a simulated problem. You know, this is not real life. You are getting yourself ready for when a real problem happens. This is awesome. It's a great sport, but you got to be realizing that this is something we've made up. This is a construct that we've made, and it's because countless civilizations have figured out that fact that like, you got to test yourself when things are good, and you have to have strong, tough people who are capable. And so that's why we have combat sports in general. And so I was always telling him like, dude, you're actually getting ready for real life things. Remember that. Keep focused on that. Don't make this more important than it is. Just realize what we're doing. And he got into a horrible. He won a title belt. Was at the top of his game. And he actually came to a wrestling practice, and we were leaving to go to a tournament, and he was leaving to go back to San Diego to go and train and get ready for another fight. And he got into a terrible car wreck, and his girlfriend didn't make it, his dog didn't make it, and his body was mangled, just so mangled. And he immediately had the mindset of getting back to fighting right away, unbelievably quick. And where a normal person would be just content to get back to being able to function as a human, he immediately had the mindset of getting back to the top of mixed martial arts.
A normal person also might not have been walking around on a peg a couple of days after
right.
having their leg amputated.
Right, and so that's one reason why he and I have such a good relationship, is we're, kindred spirits in that way. And like, I feel like it was obviously, mutually beneficial for us to be put in each other's life, and like, not necessarily a spiritual thing, but like, it was fate that led us to be teammates ahead of time. And, we had that type of relationship where his accomplishments mean more to me than mine do to me. And the same thing for him, like, if he accomplished something, it means so much to me. Every time I do something, it means so much to him. So we had that already. And then when he wanted to build back up, I'm like, dude, you know, I told you so, this was going to happen. And I immediately wrote, like, you guys watch, this guy's going to prove to us how much of a warrior he is. And so there was a local film crew that caught wind of him making a comeback. And they were filming him training and getting back into it. And then they filmed me coaching him, and then kind of realized that we had mirroring stories and mirroring mindsets, and that, you know, I was the absolute perfect person to coach him through that for the situation that it was. So they filmed it, and it turned out to be completely awesome, better than you could have imagined.
And it's all filmed here in Tahoe.
All filmed here in Tahoe, including me swimming in Tahoe, and him fighting up here, me getting into the cage up here it was when it was Mont Bleu, hiking here, me coaching the kids. There's parts of me coaching here, coaching him. All of it is in Tahoe. Him driving Uber or driving Uber Eats or whatever it is up here, like, it's all in Tahoe, and it's so cool. It's amazing to have, you know, when you live here, you can tend to take it for granted sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then when you watch it, like, I've watched momentum with people that aren't from here, or I've gotten feedback from, you know, I did a screening thing where they played it in Arkansas, I think it was, or somewhere in the Midwest. And afterwards, when they did a Q&A, they didn't care about me at all at first. They were just talking about how beautiful Tahoe was and how amazing that we get to be here. And then when you also see it on the big screen and realize, like, yeah, dude, that's part of the star of the show, is where I live and how fortunate we are to be there. It's just cool. And so I wanted Tahoe audiences to realize, like, part of the appeal of this thing is how awesome of a place we live and how awesome of a community we live in, and how cool it is that, you know, we get to do what we love in a place that's this amazing. When you think about people that crawl through the desert just to get to, you know, the southern border, or they are going to a country that doesn't want them as a refugee or whatever, and they have no idea what their life is going to be. We get to know that we're going to wake up tomorrow in Lake Tahoe, and it's really cool. And that's something I got out of watching the documentary, is like, yeah, dude, that is a pretty rad part of my life, is that fortune favored me enough to where I am a permanent resident of such an awesome place.
I think it's so amazing to, as I've started to do this podcast with no real direction other than to start just getting to know my community more, how many people have started to pop up, and just incredible pillars of light and inspiration and motivation and expertise who are pouring back into this community and changing things. I mean, your work is, I believe, about to explode and expand outside of our basin, but your story has started here. You're coaching kids here.
Right.
It's coming from South Lake.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing place to come back to as well.
Mm-hmm.
I love to travel, and just driving back and seeing the big blue lake in Tallac, it never gets old.
Could you imagine, like, the guys that traveled in wagons across the desert and then came up over, like, where Spooner is? How they must have freaked when they saw this?
Yeah, water, I mean.
Yeah, I know, and every time I leave for vacation or something, when I come back, I have that same thing, like, man, why do I even need to leave?
Yeah.
This is so cool here. So beautiful. And, you know, I like that you can go down towards the casinos and be in population and see concerts and see anything like that you would see in any city, or you could go 3 miles the other way and be completely separated from
See no one. Maybe a hiker and their dog.
Guy and their dog, and that's cool. I don't want to see the dog. But yeah, exactly. So you get the best of both worlds here that way. You can be in any type of environment you want. And then, like you said, I think Tahoe attracts people of a certain, first of all, you got to be tough to survive the winter. You got to be tough to be almost on an island here, where
You gotta be tough to make a living here.
you got to be tough to make a living here. You have to, like, you know, I wake up at 7 and I get home at 7, and then I work when I get home. You have to be that type of guy here. Or, like, you know, you interviewed Allie. She's working constantly to build that life there. And
Both Allie and Rob.
yeah, exactly. And like, they're not even the exception. That's just how people are. I mean, they're exceptional people, but that's how so many people are here. Even the person that checks your groceries or whatever, they're a tough person. They're working.
Might have 2 jobs.
Right, 100%. And I love that part of it. And then I think there's also a segment of people that just recognize the amazingness of Tahoe, and they're just someone who has set the goal or realize they want to live here and they make it happen. So there's those two cross sections: tough people that are making a living here, and people that have set themselves up to get to live here, either because they were fortunate or because of their hard work or just determination to make it happen. And there's a lot of people I know that are like that, you know, that they took a vacation here and they loved it and they said, I want to live there, and they make it happen. And those are the type of people that you like to be around.
I want to go back to your work with high school and just the way that you've impacted now as a motivational speaker and coach, and how that has this trajectory. I think our society in a lot of ways is always focused about how we can minimize pain, take a pill for that, how to escape, how to distract, how to just always be feeling good. Yeah. We're so obsessed with comfort that we've gotten away from this do the hard things. Yeah. And I just want to know, first of all, from a coach's perspective, how have you seen that coming up through the generations that are coming through classes? Are you noticing things? What's making an impact, and what are you most excited to look forward to?
Yeah, so that's a really good way to put it. So one thing I always tell them is that they are constantly bombarded with, you know, Instagram influencers, politicians, marketing agencies, everything you can think of for that, to give them comfort or to tell them that there's a magic wand that they can wave to fix, you know, a policy is going to fix your life, this medication is going to fix your life, buying this product is going to
make you feel
this way. They're bombarded with it constantly, more than you even realize. Like, you know, if you think about, you watch a commercial 10 years ago and they try to replay that commercial, you immediately remember it. And like, you wouldn't remember a TV show that way, or you wouldn't remember a book you read that way. And it's because they're just targeted to attack the human psyche, you know what I mean? And they're professionals at it. And so the kids are hammered with it more than anyone, and they don't have the perspective of what the actual world is like outside of that type of targeted thing. And kids that are 15, 16, 17, 18, they want to be happy, you know what I mean? And they want to be happy, and they don't even realize that you know what it takes to be happy, and they're constantly hit with that message. So what I have dedicated my life to do is tell them happiness is an emotion, and these things are trying to sell you that emotion. They're trying to sell you the feeling of happy, but that's fleeting. It's just like anger, it's just like sadness, it's just like fear, it's just like any other feeling you have. It comes and goes, and it's not a permanent thing. But being satisfied with who you are, what you're doing, and satisfied with your life is a whole different thing. And that's a happy life in general. And to be satisfied with it, to be able to lay down at night and look up and be satisfied with what you accomplished that day, or satisfied with who you are, or satisfied with what direction you're going, there's no magic bullet for that. There's no product for that. There's no politician who can give you that. There's no location you can live that can give you that. There's no, you know, way to look that will give you that. It's hard work, and it's setting goals, and it's sacrificing in the short term for the long term, and it's just straight up focusing on being that person that you want to build. And instead of letting all of these images and all of these campaigns and everything influence what you want to be, figure out what you feel best doing, what you want to accomplish, and go for it. And that's why I love wrestling season. We set out on the first day to be the state champion or to make it to the state tournament. And then we work tirelessly, and we go through all these ups and downs and all these, you know, by the time they're here, they're hungry, they're sore, they're tired, their friends don't even know them anymore. And now we're about to go to regionals this weekend. They're a completely different person. But the guys who've made it to this point, and the girls that just qualified for state, they can be satisfied with who they are, and they've done something that kids mostly their age can't do. And I've seen it repeated over and over, that the people that can direct themselves towards a goal and do everything in their power to get towards that goal, there's a lot of habits you have to build, good habits you have to build to get there. And there's a lot of sacrificing you have to make, and it teaches you how to make good habits. and how to put all of your energy towards a goal and how to make the sacrifices, and then you can apply it to anything. And those are the people that are content and are happy and are almost immune to this barrage of advertisement and this barrage of like people trying to create strife among us to split us so that they can get us to vote their way or buy their thing or, you know, follow their system or whatever it is. It's just those people who can focus and go for what they want and build themselves the way they want to build it that lay at home at night and are satisfied. And those are the type of people I want to try to build, and anyone can do it. It's not something that only a specific person can do. Anyone can do it. I'm not special. Chris isn't special. You know, the kids that do wrestling tournament, they're not special in the fact that they have some extra skill that someone doesn't have. They just are special that they've developed the willpower that it takes to push through all of that stuff and get there. And like you said, it's almost a sad state that the world is in, where, you know, the corporations don't have people's best interests at heart. Politicians don't necessarily, advertisement firms don't necessarily have people's best interests at heart. And you have to have someone like me directing people that way. That part's sad. But what makes me excited, to the second part of your question, these kids are so smart. They are smarter than any generation I've ever seen. Like, they can pick up technology and get things done. The stuff they're learning in school is so much more advanced than, like, I can't even help the ninth graders with their work at all now. You know, and I got a college degree, and like even the sixth and seventh graders are doing stuff that we never even thought of in school, and they are creative. And if you give them that path and you tell them, like, hey, push that other stuff out of the way, put your phone down for a second and look at me and do something, they'll do it, and they want it, and they are just as receptive as any generation has been once you get that out of the way. And so I'm excited because, like, the kids I have right now, they're just so good. They're so good in so many different things. And one of the benefits of social media and technology and all of that is they have access to all the information in the world. You know what I mean? Like, when I was their age, I had to have a magazine specifically for the thing, or I had to have like the VHS cassette of whatever technique I wanted. These kids show me a move they learned on TikTok, and they can do it the next day, and they're trying it in practice the next day, or they can get a motivational speech from a coach in Iowa directly in the little box in their pocket. You know what I mean? So there's it's easy to be harsh on the kids these days, but a lot of the things that we're mad about, every older generation is always mad about the younger generation for that. I read an article actually just a little while ago about when chess first got invented, and the old people were getting pissed off at the kids for playing too much chess. Now, if you saw a kid playing chess, you would be just completely blown away and impressed with that kid, right? And so that's a cycle that always repeats. And then the other part of, like, the kids wanting comfort and stuff and being softer, that's our fault, not theirs. You know what I mean? That's moms and dads who protect their kids too much. It's fault. That's, you know, companies that sell things that promote comfort and protection and safety. That's their fault, not the kids' fault. And the kids are just as tough as anybody, and they are just as resilient, maybe even more so, because they see things that we wouldn't have ever seen, and they can still focus. So I'm excited. I think I've never been a good old days guy in general. I like advancement and progress, and the kids that are coming up now, they're just awesome. They're awesome in a lot of ways, and especially if they have good leadership, which we need more, and that's what I'm focusing on, is let's teach these guys how to be good leaders, and they will lead, and they do know what's right, and there is temptation everywhere, but good people are good people, and there always will be people who can direct and focus and make life better. I just think that there's a gap in general, and COVID kind of started it. There's just a gap in general of people wanting good things for other people, you know, and every time in my life I've been selfish, my life has been worse. Every time I've just focused on making sure it's better for those around me, my life is better. And that's a simple message that, you know, anybody can take, and that's not hard to do. You just focus on it, you know. and that's not complicated, and there's no like, you don't need to know anything in particular. You don't need to be a scholar or rich or anything. You can make sure life is better for people around you no matter what. And the kids these days are really good at, when you tell them like, this is our goal, is to make life better on each other, they're good at that, and they're better than we were, because they can do group chats, and they can do, send each other funny memes and all this kind of stuff. That they have tools that we never would have imagined growing up. So I tend to be pretty positive about the direction of kids now.
That's a good answer. and one that I think is not as common as you would hope. I love that you have a positive spin on it and advocate for leadership through connectedness and through advocacy for one another. With this upcoming film Momentum coming out, what can people expect to see from Ryan Wallace? Okay,
so part of what I'm trying to do is, now I've recognized, like I've been talking about impactful moments, getting the leg off, get my leg amputated. Then the next part, roughly 10 years later, that was right around when I was 20. Then when I was 30 is right around when the fundraiser to give me the new leg and made me focus on getting more kids and being better for people in general. Now I just turned 40, and this next little moment seemed to happen right at that time. So one of the things I'm doing is building this thing called Momentum Mentors. And one of the most amazing things is kids that watch this film, I have been sending them a Google form with questions like, what is the goal that you would not let anything stop you from accomplishing? And I use the example of Chris, like, he had a poor childhood in a lot of ways, didn't let it stop him from being successful. He had struggles in the sport at the beginning, didn't have the resources that a lot of fighters have, didn't let him slow him down. Then he had this wreck, and he didn't let that slow him down. Then COVID tried to stop him from fighting, and he didn't let that slow him down. And then he eventually got back in the cage, won his fight. And so I use that example, and then I use me as an example of, having one leg and having all these setbacks and still going. And so I can just I narrow that down and then form it into a question for them. What's the goal you would want to accomplish? And they write amazing goals. They have such big ambitions that you would never expect. Kids I know well on this Google form will write things that they never would tell me. And they write amazing goals, like to become a pilot, or to play in the MLB, or something bigger, like to create an environmental organization that protects Lake Tahoe, or all of these things, like crazy good things they write. And then I also ask them, what's the biggest challenge in your life that will make your story good? Because what I like to try to tell kids is like, I like good stories. Everyone likes good stories. And they don't tell the story about the guy who got all C's, got a job, lived in his apartment, and everything was fine. You know what I mean? They don't make that movie. You're not going to watch that. It's about all the odds were stacked against them and they overcame it. So I try to target them like, what's the thing that would make your story good right now? And in the future, you're going to have more things that will make your story good. But right now, what is it? And they are incredibly open and heartbreaking at times with what they write. Like the last time I did it, I was just literally in my office crying because of some of the things the kids wrote that were their challenges that they don't tell, you know what I mean? But they're, for some reason, really candid after they watch Momentum and after I ask them. So it was a problem that was eating at me. Like I had all of this information from all of these kids, and they're not being served. They have goals that we don't know about, and we're not pushing them towards those. And they have challenges we don't know about, and we're not helping them solve those. And then a lot of the kids, when I meet with them, they think their problems belong only to them. They think they're the first kid who's ever felt that, or the first kid who's had a family situation like that, or the first kid who's felt despair at this age, or whatever. They think it's just them. And immediately I can let them know, like, dude, you don't understand. Every single person has felt that. That is a common thing. Or like, there's 100 people in your school who wrote something similar. You're not alone. So that part, I want to do two things with this mentorship thing. First, address their challenges, especially the ones that can be solved just by telling us. And then two, there's goals you have. There's people that want to get you there. And, people wanted to donate. I was the beneficiary of so much generosity to get me a leg so that I could accomplish my own goals. I got to pay that forward first. And then on top of that, just like I've been overwhelmed with the amount, this has been a small growing thing. So many people have said they want to volunteer to be a mentor, they want to help in some way, and it's already starting to grow. And I'm basically going to spend the next, as soon as wrestling season's over, I'm going to spend a couple hundred hours just building a whole mentorship program, something that can be exported, because Momentum's coming on PBS in May sometime. It's going to go to a lot of TVs, and right now only maybe 400 people have seen it or something in that range, and I'm getting messages and support and all of that. Even if that, is 10 times that, which I think it's going to be maybe 100 times that or more, I think there's going to be a lot of action. So first goal, get these kids in Tahoe, create a mentorship program where I can get them in contact with people that can help them solve those problems. And then next step, get them in contact with people who want to help push them towards those goals and make sure that they achieve them. And I want Tahoe to just be, because of what it's been for me, I want it to be that for these kids, where it's just an explosion of success out of here. And because of so many great things that have happened to me, and I was fortunate that I didn't die, I got a second chance. I was fortunate that people came to my aid and I got to rethink my life and have my obituary read to me early. Now I'm to a point where that sticking to those core values that I had and being generous has got me to this next point to take off. I want to make sure that it just explodes with benefit for everyone. And so you can expect just an insanely higher level of Coach Ryan than you've been getting, which might be an OD, I don't know. People might just get so successful that like the whole world turns into something different.
I think you have a lot to give here, and to scale it out. So then this is going to be something that once done in Tahoe will be created in a format that I have a feeling you will take outside of Tahoe.
Yeah, so my plan is to create videos to help train mentors, to make myself available to speak. Like you're watching this, you obviously know I got the oratory skills, and I've been working hard on that. And to make it so that I have a workbook and goals. The way that I set goals, I have a specific way that I've been really focusing on and has worked for me, and it's what I give the wrestlers to do. So I'm going to have a workbook with goals and a workbook to help mentors, to train them. So what I want is just to be able to export the story of Momentum into why Chris and I were able to be a good story. You know what I mean? Like the reason we were is because of setting goals and pushing through every obstacle. The reason why my part is in there, that it's good, because his story is the story that drives it. He's the good story of it. It's just, for me, the fact that I was able to demonstrate generosity and I was funny in there, and there was all these elements that, I have focused on in my life, kind of padded that story and helped showcase his. I'm going to make sure that we get the most out of that. And then Michelle and Lane, who made it, their work needs to get seen, and they need to realize like they made me much better of a person just from watching. Like you can't even, it's such a surreal thing, but watching yourself in that way motivates you to be the better version of yourself constantly, So I want to export it, and like I said, I want this to just branch out. I feel like I've been inefficient. It's really hard to say that you're awesome. You know what I mean? It's really hard. I mean, some people do it, but it's false. It's hard for me to sort of break through a little bit of humility and to say I got something people need to hear, and I have a way to live that you should do. It's hard for me. But now I realize I've been inefficient with it because it actually is working and there is merit to it, and I am awesome. And Chris is awesome, and we do have something that's better than a lot of things that are out there to share, and we need to share it, and we need to share it. We can't just limit it to the 20 or 30 people we're interacting with at a time. There's, hundreds or 200 or 300 people a day could hear this or more, I don't know. But I have realized that there's got to be a next level of spreading this and seeing if, I believe pretty strongly in the core values that I've stuck by, in the way that I've lived, in the things that I've done for other people, and why that's the way to be. And it's now going to be an experiment, like see if it works on a massive scale. And there's no risk, you know what I mean? There's no risk to that. It's the only risk is, I guess, opening yourself up to criticism, but that's a very small problem when you face death over and over and that type of thing, you know. So yeah, if you're asking about, to narrow it down to what to expect absolute dominance. Like the small scale dominance I've done, just expect it to be, I'm just going to crush everyone, get them setting goals, get them being positive, getting them to view life humorously, and to, you know, at the same time that you're not taking yourself too seriously, take making yourself awesome seriously. And so I'm excited for that. And there's like, I got a bunch of good news that's like on the precipice of getting announced. And then, you know, I don't know, like PBS is a pretty cool thing. Oh, and I'm really going to try this. Is like, mark this. If I can tell 5-year-old me that I got on Sesame Street, like that's it. It's done. Like I've done it. Like I had a Sesame Street birthday party. I had all the books. I even had Big Bird like bookcase thing. So I'm going to try to parlay it into an appearance on Sesame Street.
That would be awesome.
Try to get the Grouch out of the trash can, get him to get his stuff going. Get the Cookie Monster on a diet, whatever. No, so I really want to get on Sesame Street, and then, but just being on PBS, I don't know, but I'm going to work harder than anyone to prepare to be ready for whatever opportunities come, so I can seize on it. And that's, you know, just kind of the last lesson. The thing that I want people to know is like, when an opportunity comes, you have to just outwork everyone to prepare for it so that you can capitalize on it. And when you see it coming, you can't just wait for it to get there and then try to catch up. Otherwise, it's too late, you know. So I've messed that up in the past, and this chance, it's a one-time thing, and I'm going to be 10 times more prepared. And then in that process of getting prepared, I think I'll have another lesson that I can share, is like how to capitalize on your opportunities and how to be grateful for what's coming. You know, this is a big tailwind that's pushing me forward, and I got to catch that wind and go with it, you know.
Ryan, I want to have you back. I want to cover this momentum program, you know, once you've had the chance to kind of get it into its next evolution. I think that people who are watching this are going to have so many questions. I would love to just see it in the comments.
Yeah.
I want to know what you think.
Let's do a Q&A.
I would love to do a Q&A. We'll do something live on your channel.
Yeah.
And then I just want to get you back, and I want to talk about the impact that the movie's had once it's out,
right,
and how this coaching program has taken off, and perhaps even go through some of the mindset and goal-setting techniques from the momentum side that we might be able to share out.
Definitely.
Just give people things that are tangible, because I think hearing your story here, there's going to be enough people that hopefully see this video that listen to it and say, I want to know how he got there and how I can take tomorrow and make tomorrow different than yesterday.
Right. Well, let's do it. Yeah. And like, I just want it to be known, like, I am here to give it. I want to help. I want, like, if you reach out to me in any way, if there's anything I can do, I'll do it. And that's like a word that most people give, and they kind of mean, I mean it. I mean it big time, and I'm trying to pay back for all the benefits that life has put on me. So
where can people get a hold of you?
So Instagram, Ryan the Champutee Wallace. That's a combo of champ and amputee, if you want to know. Ryan the Champutee Wallace on YouTube.
Yep, we'll get all that in the show notes too.
We'll put that in there. Or you can email me at sltwrestling@yahoo. Facebook. You can find me, Ryan Wallace, on Facebook. Any of those normal things. Or I'm always at the high school, after school, coaching wrestling. I work at the middle school. You can find me through that. Or just look in the newspaper and see what awesome thing I've done recently. And PBS soon.
Yeah. PBS.
In May.
So.
I think May 1st, but I guess I have a meeting actually tomorrow at 10 about that part with someone from PBS. But yeah, it'll be there. And then one last thing I'm gonna do that you guys can. So first of all, I'm looking for people that want to be involved in the mentorship program. I will come back on, and when that's more fleshed out, we can rock that. Also, whatever day it premieres on PBS, I'm going to have the city declare that Momentum Day. And I'm gonna do like a volunteer drive and just kind of a pay it forward, do good deeds, set goals, whatever kind of day that our city recognizes and that is an annual thing that maybe grows into a good event or something where we can raise money for charities, you know, do a good deed community-wide, trash pickup, whatever. That's going to grow, but Momentum Day is going to be whatever day it comes out on PBS, and that's kind of my goal, is to have that be sort of my legacies that lives on forever.
We should have it premiered somewhere in town.
Yeah, so I'm working on that. My big vision is do like a fundraiser brunch in the morning at the Blue Event Center or somewhere with sponsors, and then a little talk that I give, or maybe get another speaker to come in, and then do a big free screening party for the night that it shows, that night or whatever. I'm working on that, and I'll get the info out, but yeah, that's kind of the goal. I want everybody to be able to be there and enjoy that.
Well, for everybody locally watching this and who follow Ryan, you know, if you already follow me, obviously that's why you're here. We'll make sure that we stay on top of it, do a promo right before it comes out.
Sweet.
I'd love to just help spread the word, because I think you've got an awesome message, and this podcast and just getting you here totally, you know, blew away my expectations. We've had very short, concise, you know, 3-minute talks, like, hey, you need to be on. Great. What do you want to talk about? Well, this, and this, and just we made it happen.
Yeah, we made it happen.
Getting to hear your story and get to share it with people, I'm just really excited to see this grow and impact our community and impact other communities, be an advocate and a voice for especially the kids that you're involved with, and see how this grows. So we'll get you back on, Ryan, and
Let's rock it.
Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Of course, dude.